Do you think on the Democratic side you would do a town hall with someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
I would not.
Okay. Why?
Because he spreads dangerous misinformation about childhood vaccines. I had a personal experience with him in 2005 when he became, a professional experience personally with him. In 2005 was when he began in earnest his anti-childhood vaccine campaign. He wrote a story for Salon.com that was jointly published with Rolling Stone, both of which have since
rescinded it, right?
Retracted the articles, and Rolling Stone just completely disappeared it. It was like it never happened. Salon has a page where they acknowledge what happened and et cetera, but Rolling Stone is just like, it's like Hoffa. I don't know what, just gone. Anyway, I just dealt with him, and he was so dishonest in that experience, and since then, he lies about the experience frequently, as an example of how the media is co-opted by Big Pharma.
All right, guys, so if you didn't know, there was a presidential town hall last night featuring Joe Biden's #1 Democrat primary opponent, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a.k.a. RFK, the most censored man in America. And that's probably why you didn't know about it, because just like I showed you guys at the beginning of this video, Jake Tapper, the powers that be, CNN are like, nah, we wouldn't host a town hall with RFK, okay? I mean, CNN barely wanted to host a town hall with Trump. They could barely stomach it. Apparently, the woke hosts like Jake Tapper were melting down and boo-hoo, whining, and crying because CNN decided to platform Orange Man, right? They decided to platform opinions that they don't like. Now, RFK, I believe, is probably the most censored man in America because he has opinions on vaccines that the mainstream establishment does not like, okay? And he had an opportunity to express those opinions during this town hall that was hosted by News Nation, because News Nation apparently is willing to platform ideas that are controversial, right? Which I have to applaud them for. Okay, I have to applaud them. However, News Nation did try to do the same thing to RFK that CNN tried to do to Trump, which was try to debate RFK on this issue instead of actually trying to listen to him speak and to give his opinion, which is what a town hall is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a debate. Okay, however, they tried to debate RFK on vaccines, and it didn't really work out too well. Even though they had a physician confront RFK on his stance on vaccines, didn't work out too well. It was probably one of the most fascinating exchanges that I've seen in a long, long, long time. Okay, it was probably just as fascinating and entertaining as the exchange that CNN had with Trump when they tried to confront Trump on his claims about the election. Because again, the woke powers that be say that there are certain things that you can't claim about the election, and there's certain things that you can't say about vaccines, okay? They don't want to allow public discourse or debate on these issues because apparently the American people are too dumb to decide for themselves. So with that being said, what I want to talk about here is a part of this town hall from News Nation that I think really stuck out with me the most, which is when this host by the name of Elizabeth Vargas, she tried to bait Robert F. Kennedy Jr. into attacking Trump after Trump praised Kennedy. And let's just say that definitely backfired, and it did not work out the way that this host thought that it would work out with RFK Jr.'s beautiful response to her baited question. Take a look.
You say that you're a Democrat, but you're getting a lot of support from a lot of leading voices on the right, like Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, former President Donald Trump. Many Democrats fear that you're a spoiler in the race, that you will damage President Biden in the primary and grease the skids for former President Trump to return to the Oval Office. This week, former President Trump said about you, Kennedy is smart and he's a common sense guy. What kind of man do you think Donald Trump is?
Well, here's what I'm not going to do in this race. I'm not going to attack other people personally. I don't think it's good for our country. And I think, what I'm trying to do in this race is bring people together, is to try to bridge the divide between Americans. And guess what? The when my dad died and we took this train ride from, this 7.5-hour train ride that was supposed to be 2 hours, and I was with him when he died in Los Angeles, and then we brought his body from New York, Penn Station to Union Station and Washington, D.C. And it was a 2.5-hour ride, but it took 7.5 hours because there were 2.5 million people on that train track. And it was the cross-section of America and all of the major urban stations in Trenton, Newark, Wilmington, and Baltimore. There were Black Americans singing Battle Hymn of the Republic. There were whites in the rural areas who are holding up signs, "Goodbye, Bobby," "Pray for us, Bobby," American flag, standing, saluting. 4 years later, and they had supported my father in the primaries in 1968. 4 years later, in 1972, they were not supporting my father, and they were not supporting George McGovern, who was aligned with my father on all these issues. Instead, the vast majority of them were supporting George Wallace. And, my father was able to harness these populist energies. In the last day of his life, he won the most rural state in this country, South Dakota, and the most urban. He was able to bridge the divide among people who would otherwise be Republican, but wanted somebody who was common sense, who was able to appeal to their idealism, who was able to find the hero in each of them, who was able to get them to transcend narrow self-interest and see themselves as part of a community and part of this, incredible American adventure in modeling self-governance for the rest of the world. And so I'm proud that President Trump likes me, even though I don't agree with him on most of his issues. Because I don't want to alienate people. I want to bring people together. I'm proud that all these people like me and that I have independent supporters and Democratic supporters, and that I'm able to bring a lot of people. Every Democrat says, I want to end the polarization. But how do you do that without talking to people who don't agree with you? How do you do that without appealing to people? My purpose is to find the issues, the values that we have in common, rather than, focus on the issues and the personalities that keep us all apart.
Yeah, so you see now, you heard that. And I just want to reiterate, because I think a lot of people kind of get it twisted, right? When, conservatives come out and, we make content about people that we disagree with politically, where, we say, hey, we agree with this one specific thing that they said. They think that means that you're supporting them, and that's just not necessarily the case. What I'm actually really doing is saying, hey, look, we have some liberals here, some of whom may be reasonable, right? And I want to platform reasonable ideas, okay, even if I disagree with them politically, because at the end of the day, I want to promote just reasonable ideas, right? Regardless of politics, okay? It just so happens that a lot of liberals don't, or progressives really, don't have reasonable ideas, okay? But RFK seems to be a reasonable person on most issues, okay? And there are some issues where, again, I disagree with him on, like, for example, he came out today in support of affirmative action after the Supreme Court outlawed racism in college admissions. I disagree with him on that. He's a Democrat, right? At the end of the day, I understand that. But that doesn't stop me from saying, hey, there are just some issues where I think that RFK is spot on, okay? And the way he handled this question right here from this host who was clearly trying to bait him into attacking Trump or even praising Trump. Either way, again, it was just a thing of beauty, right? It really shows hyper intelligence, the ability to think on his feet, okay, something that Joe Biden just doesn't have at all. Okay, I don't know if Joe Biden can think at all at this point. He has the ability to think on his feet, and he's just a politically savvy guy, because this was an extremely politically savvy answer, right? In the sense that if he would have answered the question either way, right? Let's say he comes out and he says a bunch of negative stuff about Trump. Now he has the mainstream liberal media goading him into attacking Trump, which would alienate Trump voters or Trump Republicans. Now, this host is smart enough to know that, but again, what you have here is the mainstream liberal media trying to get RFK to do the tap dance, okay? You got these sketchy guys, these right-wingers, these racist bigots, okay, these Trumpers like Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson out here praising you. And Trump praised you. You say you're a Democrat, right? You say you're a Democrat. What do you think about Trump? What do you think the intention behind that question was? Again, it was to get RFK to do the tap dance, which he refused to do, okay? Because RFK could have also went the other way and said, hey, I really like Trump a lot, okay? I really like Trump a lot. Okay, I like, I'm a big Trump guy. He could have said something like that. And they can say, oh, look, see, this is RFK praising Trump. He is a MAGA guy, right? He's a right-wing white supremacist, okay? This is what they would have said. But instead of doing that, RFK actually turned it back around and called out the Democrats for their divisiveness, which is exactly what that question was intended to do. It was intended to divide people and to say, hey, look, you got to attack your political opponent personally. You need to attack him personally because we don't like him, right? He's on the other side. So you need to throw personal attacks at him instead of engaging in a debate about policy, which is what politics is supposed to be about, right? Politics is not supposed to be about personal attacks. It's supposed to be about policy. And RFK showed that, hey, I'm not going to play your game. I am going to effectively call out the Democrats for endorsing this type of divisive political strategy while at the same time claim that they're trying to have unity, right? Claiming that they're trying to bring people together when all they do is divide, right? All they do is divide. And always trying to get people to attack Trump, to do the tap dance for them, is a tactic used to divide people even further. As if Trump supporters are irredeemable, right? If a Trump supporter likes you or may vote for you, that makes you a bad person, right? Therefore, you need to come out here and to disavow Trump. Disavow Trump or admit that you love him, okay? This is the type of tribal politics that the Democrats play, but then turn around and say, well, we're trying to heal wounds, right? We're trying to heal wounds. When that's not what they're trying to do, right? They're actually actively trying to make things worse, right? That's exactly what they're trying to do. And I love the way that RFK turned this question around and flipped it back on the Democrats saying like, look, why y'all always doing this, right? Why do y'all always do this? Why do y'all always claim to be trying to bring people together, but every time you look, you're actually really trying to divide people with stuff like this? There's nothing wrong with Trump giving you praise, right? There's nothing wrong with Trump praising people. That doesn't make you a bad person because Trump gave you praise, right? Just like it doesn't make you a bad person if Biden praises you, right? It doesn't mean that you're irredeemable or that you have to answer for that, right? It doesn't mean that at all. And it's stuff like this, which is the reason why I think that RFK appears to be a very likable person, right? Even in the Democrat Party, despite the fact that the mainstream liberal media has gone out of their way to smear the man every chance they get, okay? As this new poll shows that 35% of Democrats say RFK Jr. could win the presidential nomination. And again, I got to, remind people, this is not me coming out here and saying that I would vote for RFK or that I'm supporting him or anything like that. I'm just commenting on both sides of the political spectrum, right? Because I'm a political commentator. So I want people to understand that, okay? But let's read about this. Presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is turning out to be a favorite among Democrat voters, with recent polls showing that 35% of Democrats believe he will defeat President Joe Biden in the primary election and will become the party's 2024 presidential nominee. The more time that moves on, the more I start to believe it. But then I thought about the fact that with this man's vaccine stance and the way that he debated that position right on stage at this News Nation town hall, there's no way in hell they're letting this guy anywhere near this debate stage with Joe Biden, right? Or the White House. There's no way they're letting this guy anywhere near a debate stage of the White House, okay? So I don't know, man. I don't know. According to a Rasmussen report that surveyed 1,046 likely U.S. voters, which was conducted between June 20th and June 22nd, 49% of respondents viewed RFK Jr. as favorable, while 14% said they have a very favorable view of him. 38% of survey respondents viewed Kennedy as unfavorable, compared to 18% that said he was very unfavorable. 14% of respondents voted that they were unsure, according to the report. The question asked by Rasmussen that voters responded to was, quote, do you have a very favorable, somewhat unfavorable, or very unfavorable impression of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? The survey also included a second question that stated, quote, how likely is it that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will end up being the Democratic presidential nominee in 2024, with 31% of respondents voted that it is likely Kennedy will become the party's nominee, compared to 9% that voted very likely. 57% said a Kennedy nomination is unlikely, while 28% voted not at all likely. 11% of respondents said they were not sure, according to the report. Yeah, so, RFK had another poll here in which he ranked with the highest favorability among Democrats and Republicans, okay? And again, I think it's answers like that that really help him out when it comes to, again, some of these favorability polls, because, again, he really did give a blueprint on how to actually bring the country together. Like, that is an answer that I think is a unifying answer, where you can look across the aisle and say, hey, you know what? We may disagree on some things politically, but, we're all Americans at the end of the day, and we need to come together for the greater good. And, again, I think that he kind of showed and exposed Democrats for their hypocrisy on so-called unity, while also giving a demonstration on how to actually unify people, right, without attacking Trump. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.